You're listening to Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guests. I have to tell you something, people. You know, when I got out of the hospital, they put me on this a new heart medicine, and it's so weird. I looked at the side effects because it's giving me the weirdest dreams. Now, I never had a whole bunch of dreams, but now I'm getting like 2 or 3 a night, and it's driving me crazy because people show up that I'm friends with on Facebook who I never met. I'm in my neighborhood growing up, and it's just crazy. So I have to go out there, and if any of you people are on Metropolol, look it up because you might not want to get on that drug. Anyway, we have a great show today. We have a very talented guy, you know, great writer, songwriter. He's won a Grammy. He's all over there. He's had a great career, and my guest is Dave Pirner. How you doing, Dave?
Good. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. I was just a fan of your work. You know, it's good to talk to you. You've had lasting power, and in this day and age, the way the music industry changes, there's not a lot of people with lasting power anymore. I heard you started off as a drummer. What made you want to get into the drums?
I don't know. I was one of those kids who was farming on my mom's pots and pans and make a drum set out of Quaker Oats boxes. You know, anything. I was just always banging and hitting on things. And then, like, I remember my parents would, they'd get me out of bed at night whenever Buddy Rich was on the Johnny Carson show. So they must have at least knew that I just was delighting in it. And I really wanted a hi-hat. So finally I got a toy drum set when I was a very, very little kid, and it didn't have a hi-hat because they don't sell those for toy drum sets. So I don't know, man. I mean, I still play almost every day. I'm looking at a drum set right now.
You're cutting out. Are you close to the phone? Oh, there you are. No, you cut out for a second. So you start playing now. Now when you started to play in high school, you're trying to get bands together. Did you ever think you'd become a frontman?
I think secretly I always wanted to be the front man, I think. But I knew that there was different ways of getting there, I suppose. I mean, playing the drums really helps understand the rudiments of just how music fits together, you know. And I think there was like a songwriter that was inside of me that was trying to get out, and a singer and a show off. But the guys that get all the credit are the guys that show off on their guitars.
Now, who were some of your influences when you were younger? And you were in a teenage? What kind of music were you listening to?
Well, I started out like most people, I suppose. I don't know how most people start out anymore, come to think of it. But just listening to AM radio, you know. And I was into jazz. I was a trumpet player when I was a kid. So I was listening to like weather reports and just odd fusion stuff. Return to Forever, Maynard Ferguson, and Chuck Mangione. And then I discovered Miles Davis, which was a bit of a revelation. But at the same time, you know, the guy in the band sitting next to me, he brought me his brother's copy of Are You Experienced to Jimi Hendrix, and that sort of changed my paradigm. At that point, I knew that I wanted to switch to guitar. But, yeah, I mean, a lot of hard rock, you know. I was into Kiss for a while. I was into Black Sabbath. I was into Stevie Wonder and Peter Frampton and stuff like that, I guess.
Now, did you ever in those early days think of pursuing the jazz road because you liked it, or was it, you know, at one point before Jimi Hendrix, before you heard that, were you considering ever following jazz?
My parents still didn't that was not a good job. So I kind of figured something to fall back on. So I suppose it's ironic that is what I do, but it was, I think, more of a pipe dream when I was little. And
now, when did you get your... Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit on me, but we're having a little connection.
All right. I think the phone is fucked.
Can you hear me okay?
Is this better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Hey, now I can't hear you very well, but we'll try.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's just a little faint.
Okay,
Not
well,
loud.
I talk loud, so we're all good. So when did you put your first band together?
High school, probably 1980, maybe 79, probably 80. We were called the SCHITZs. I don't know if what kind of broadcast we're doing here, but we were the shits.
You can curse. Okay,
I don't know if I can say that or not.
You can. You can say fuck. You can say shits, whatever you want.
And it was fun. It was fun to go, we're the shits. But at that point, we had all discovered punk rock. So at that point, it was all about the Ramones and the Sex Pistols and the Clash and, really primitive music that people with a limited amount of talent could play. And, that was the sort of the model. When I started writing my own songs, they were very, very simple. Songs called like Screw, Screw, Screw or Drive, Drive. That was a song about driving. You could probably imagine what Screw, Screw, Screw is about. Working on construction, right?
Yeah. So when did Soul Asylum begin?
Well, I believe it was the summer between my junior and senior year in high school. One of the guys from the shits had left town for the summer, and I met Danny and Carl. They went to a different high school than I did, and we started a trio. We would just each other at like rock shows outside, stuff that underage people could get into, and we got to kind of be friends. And they were dating the girls from my high school, so they were around. And Danny could kind of play. Carl was just figuring it out, and gonna play drums, or I did play drums, and that was the trio. And we finally decided on the name Loudfast Soul Asylum. We got a drummer, and then we got a deal from the local record label Twin Tone. And at that point, I didn't want to be called Loudfast Rules because I just felt like it was too limiting to what one might expect from us. And but yeah, I mean, at the time, it was like hardcore punk rock was the thing. So it was whoever could play the fastest and the loudest what kind of wins the contest. And we were pretty loud and pretty fast. I mean, we were holding our own. We had Husker Du and The Replacements, and all those Minneapolis bands were our contemporaries, if you will, people that were playing around town. And it was a great scene. I mean, I always assume that people out of high school have a great music scene, and I'm just not sure. I mean, I know that I just went to a friend's graduation party, and they were going to house parties where each other's bands were playing and stuff. So I mean, I hope that that's an option for anyone, because it sure sort of saved me and gave me a direction. And before that, I was just kind of flunking out of sports in school.
So the band forms. Now, how do you come up with the name Soul Asylum?
Well, we were desperately trying to change the name because now we had a recording project going, or we had a record we were working on, and I just kept brainstorming, and I finally had written a poem, believe it or not, a poem, and the title of the poem was Soul Asylum. And I thought, what the heck, I'll pitch it to the band, and they bought it. And at that point, we were just trying everything, I'd come with something written on a piece of paper and show it to the band, thinking they'd get all excited, and they'd go, thumbs down. So, it's a poem, oddly enough. and it just seemed like two words that sounded like a band name.
Well, it is catchy. Now, when you first, I guess it was Twin Tone you signed with, right?
Correct.
Now, what did they want to do with you? Did they want to have you still play punk, or did they want you to develop different? What was their goal for you guys?
Well, there was no direction as far as, I mean, the music of the time was very much do it yourself. I mean, no one messed with anybody else's music. So they were, Twin Tone was not the kind of label that tried to form artists or tell artists to do something different than they were doing. It's just very indie stuff, and the idea is to sort of catch it when it's raw and catch it when it's as real as it can be, not change it. So anyhow, I was walking across the street one day with Bob Mould, and he said, "Hey, I want to produce your record." And I said, "What does that mean?"
Right.
I really didn't understand what that meant, but I think that having Bob come in with us and the label trusting Bob, and Bob being of a band that was never on Twin Tone, I think it was a good enough system of checks and balances. I mean, Husker Du at that time was just ferocious, so it was very much, it was punk rock times, and we were trying to make really aggressive music. And, some of that record, the first record anyways, is probably more diverse than what a lot of the bands were doing. I mean, some bands are just playing every single song was a million miles an hour, and it was a blur. I mean, you could barely, which really works. I mean, it's like if you're at a disco and one song flows into the other, and they keep this BPMs thing happening where people can continue to dance. I mean, these bands would come out, they'd play for an hour, and it'd just be a blur of just, people dancing violently and it never really stopping. And it was something else. I mean, I'm sure there's someone still doing that somewhere.
Well, you were with Twin Tone, and you recorded 3 albums with them. How did you make the move to A&M?
Twin Tone and A&M decided to do some sort of a merge thing, and we were kind of the band that they were doing it around. And we liked that idea because we still got to keep the indie thing alive as far as whatever that meant, our association with being on an independent label. And, having a budget and the reach, I guess, of a major label. So it was comforting in the way that some of the people that we relied on at Twin Tone were coming. And, the first thing that happened, it was like, let's make a record. And I was like, well, I want to work with the guy, the Ramones records, and how about that guy in the Patti Smith band? Because I always thought Lenny Kaye was cool. And they said, sure. And I was like, no kidding. So it was really the first time we'd ever had a budget to make a record, and just having that kind of access is pretty cool. So there I am. Suddenly I'm in New York with producers and engineers that I really admire. And so it was a pretty smooth transition, probably the weirdest part was just being in California a lot and being in New York City a lot. And that's because that's where the labels wanted the artists. And there's just more studios, there's more choices for, what kind of room you need, gear you need, and most of the people in the industry are living in one place or the other. So, yes, it's kind of true that there's not a studio in Minneapolis that can keep up with some of those and there's a dozen world-class studios every few miles. so that part was the transition from the little city to the big city, and just being in New York all the time, which is cool. It's just very expensive, but,
So now the first two albums didn't sell real great for A&M, right?
Yes, I would say that for a major label, they did not sell very well.
So where does that leave you as a band? I mean, you got to work with these great people. You came in touted. Was it disappointing for you?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have a department for us, so like the expressions like alternative and those kind of expressions had not been made up yet. Somewhere between college radio, and they had no idea what to do with us, because there just wasn't that much out there at the time. So people didn't know what to do once they brought sort of a punk rock band into their it was always kind of complicated. See that, we had a following by then. We had been to Germany, and we'd been to, we've been around, so we had our own fan base. I guess that's right, fan base. That's what that's called. So there was obviously something to it as far as they were concerned. But yeah, it was frustrating because they just didn't know which way to put us. Do they put us with the metal bands? Do they put us where do they don't have people working there that understand what the music is, and not a lot of outlets for it.
Now you ended up with Columbia. How did they sign you? What kind of band did they bring you on as?
Hold on a second. I'm sorry. We ended up at Columbia. What was the question?
What kind of band did they sign you as? Because you said before.
Oh well. By that time, Columbia was very aware of the fact that we were not to be fucked with, if you will. Like, you don't take a DIY band and try to tell them what to do, because they're at least that smart. So by now, things like Nirvana were happening. By now, aggressive bands were making it onto major labels, and Columbia needed theirs, because they didn't have one. So that would have been us. And so they were ready for a rock band. They were ready for an alternative band, whatever it is you want to call us. And they needed to have one, because I guess every label needs a token something,
Right.
It was pretty smooth as far as them just going, okay, now you do your thing, and we're ready to put our support behind it.
When you recorded Grave Dancers Union, did you expect it to blow up the way it did?
Well, no. I mean, of course not. I mean, I just it was very. I was very immersed in the record. I couldn't really, tell night from day, and it was finished, and I was looking for a manager, I guess, and the manager heard the first 3 songs, and he went, "Oh, I definitely want to manage this band," and that was the first time somebody reacted in a way. I was like, wow, he really likes that, So I was just kind of not, I wasn't really playing it for people. I was just kind of finishing up tight ends and, just kind of wondering what was going to happen next. I had shopped the record myself in New York, and they rarely got as far as Runaway Train was on the demo tape. But I did. I went to like 6 or 7 labels. And they're like, "Oh, you're gonna making an acoustic record, because that was just how we decided to cut the demo. But yeah, I mean, I think we kind of put we supercharged it when we recorded the record and made it a rock record.
Well,
the demo was kind of folky.
Now, Runaway Train became a huge hit. How long did that take you to write? Was that one of those? Because a lot of times I talk to a lot of people who say, sometimes they'll write a song within 20 minutes. Sometimes it will take them a few days. Where did Runaway Train come from?
I know, it's very crazy. Yeah, I was just talking about that. Some songs, you sit down and you write the whole fucking thing, and other songs I worked on for 10 years, and I got one of each right now. I just wrote one in one sitting, and I'm trying to finish one that I've been working on for 10 years, and it seems impossible for me. I don't know. I can't figure it out. But Runaway Train was a melody that I had in my head for a very long time, and it had different lyrics, and I thought that the lyrics could be better. So I sort of had this tune going in my head with these lyrics that I was kind of so on, and then it just sort of turned. It sort of came together. I had a friend I was calling up in the middle of the night because I was experiencing some pretty lousy depression, and we kind of sort of just wrote it down one day. It really strike me as a particular memory, other than it was a melody waiting for words, and they just kind of sort of came out of me one day, probably one night.
Well, you record that, and then you do the video, and the video, was very influential. It had a lot of, found a lot of people who were missing. It's been remade. Did you have any input on that video? Did you know where you wanted to go with it?
Well, what you do is you go have lunch or dinner with potential directors. That's what you did, which is probably just such a long gone thing. We were just talking about that yesterday. MTV was this behemoth, and then it just sort of vanished, depending on your perspective. But yeah, I mean, the record company would spend money so I could have dinner with a director and see if we had a good idea between each other. And in order to pick the directors we wanted to meet, you'd get a pile of VHS tapes, and have to sort of look through their work. And this guy, I don't think had done, Tony Kaye, as far as I know, had not done a music video. So his reel was like commercials and like weird short films and like stuff like that. And I just thought his eye was amazing. I was like, wow, this is very visually stunning. So I get a meeting with Tony Kaye, and he says, milk cartons. And I say, what? And he goes, milk cartons. And he says, you know how they put missing kids on milk cartons? Which he's British, so I don't know if he knew that from growing up. But I certainly remember kids on milk cartons. So anyhow, he goes into, well, let's put these kids in. He was making a literal. He was just using the word runaway, really, and sort of making a transition to these are kids, and then he was like, we're gonna use real kids in the video. And I just went, that is brilliant, as Tony would say. And that was kind of, that was the seed of the video. It was really his concept, and I loved it. So we were pretty tight working on it, and I was doing a lot of learning about the whole situation. I mean, they put this guy named Ernie from the Center for Missing and Exploited Children on the job, and I don't know if on the job sounds right, but I had to consult and learn what the process of with trying to find kids, because we had to, we couldn't just use pictures of anyone. We had to use pictures of they thought were the best candidates. And, that turned into, I was around when Polly Klaas was kidnapped, and I'd end up kind of being more involved in some of these things and talking about it a lot. And it's really something. I mean, the association of this probably thing that a lot of people can think of, and the song are somewhat of just a literal use of the word runaway. The song is not per se about runaway children, I guess is the point.
Now, that video got so much attention, and you guys are getting attention. How is your life changing? Because as you said, MTV, it used to be MTV. If you saw a video, everyone saw it, and you knew who the person was. It's like now, I don't watch Jersey Shore or any of that crap. But how was your life changing when you started selling, moving a lot of product, and your face was everywhere?
How did it change my general state of being? Is that what you mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, were you getting cocky because everyone saw you, or what were you doing?
I was touring constantly. I was, the thing that annoyed me was the part that was not music. So, you find yourself doing a lot of photo shoots and sort of thinking, man, I didn't sign up for this. I don't want to be a model. What the fuck? So things like that are just kind of annoying, but you kind of call it the dirty work and you just do it. But it does keep you busy. You're flying all over the place doing promotion and doing radio stuff and playing tons and tons of gigs. And also, getting like Tokyo and Australia and places that, the band maybe hadn't been previously. So it's just extremely busy, and you sort of have to take it as it comes, but I didn't really get into it, I just kind of did it reluctantly. But the playing part was good,
Well, as you're on the road and and doing the whirlwind, were you starting to write your next album? Did you know that you have to do another album? I mean, that's just the way it works.
Yeah, it's a time thing. I think I'm today, and I just have to keep doing it, or else I get rusty or something. I get out of the habit. So yeah, realistically, I start writing the next record the second the last one is released. So yeah, I wasn't thinking, oh God, which I probably should have been thinking, oh God, I got to follow this up with another hit record. But I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking, oh, this is my opportunity to really explore, the music and the studio and see what I can really do to sort of be innovative, I guess. And, that's where you get in the trap. There it is. They want another Runaway Train, and I'm like, I already wrote that song.
Right.
So, it wasn't that cool in that sort of way where I'm just like, oh, no, that was just a song, a whole record of songs that sound like that, So that's a little frustrating. It's still frustrating.
It must be, because you
I
have
ain't complaining, but I'm just not, it's just not that kind of a band. We have to come out and pretty much play loud and hard, and that's kind of your relief, is the more acoustic stuff.
Now, how did you meet Kevin Smith?
God, I wish I had a better beginning for this story, but I believe it was none other than Harvey Weinstein, who I met at a party, and he knew that, oh, wait a minute, that's not true. Actually, oh, thank God it's not, because I hate having to start a story the cast of Clerks. It was a blast. I mean, it was just hilarious. That's how you make a video. It was like just fun, you know. So they used the song, and then yeah, I ran into Harvey, and he said, Mr. Weinstein, and he said, "Oh, Kevin's making a new movie. You should score it." And I said, "I would love to do that." And I just thought it was a, Hollywood party talk. I did not expect a call from his office the next day. And yeah, I met with Kevin. We hit it off. We know each other. We knew each other a little bit, but I of course think he's great, and it's just friend, and it's very kind of low key thing, It was anyways, he was sort of into. The idea was not to spend as much money as possible. It was a little not Hollywood. It was more Kevin works better on a smaller budget kind of thing. So, I did the whole soundtrack in the guy's garage. He plays guitar for Bonnie Raitt. And it was fun. I played all the instruments, and Kevin stopped by every now and then setting it into the movie was just like really cool. Like, he'd make a suggestion, and I'd go, "You're the director." I got the music here. You put it where you want, and really, it's your baby, Kevin. But it certainly was a thrill to be part of that. And playing the picture is something that I really like. So a lot of the music was sort of composed as I was watching the movie.
Okay.
So I probably watched Chasing Amy 500 times.
All right. Now, you also played for the president. How does that come apart? I mean, you think about it. How does that happen? I mean, you guys started off as a punk rock band in Minnesota. Now you're playing for the president. How did that even come about?
Well, oddly, you don't know a lot of these things for sure. But my understanding is that it somehow came through Chelsea. Chelsea was like, "Dad, check this band out," or something to that effect. Or he said, or Hillary said, "Who do you think we should have play at this signing of a youth?" It was a youth employment bill that was being passed, so they wanted it to have a young angle to it, and that was us, apparently. So yeah, there we were playing on the White House lawn, playing Black Gold and Without a Trace, and playing songs that I thought were pretty politically charged. So I was starting to feel like, man, this is a good audience for these songs. I'm getting somewhere with this music. I mean, these are the dudes, and I say dudes because there's a lot of suits there that need to hear this. So at that point, I felt pretty like I was in a pretty influential position, I suppose. And yeah, I mean, he was so great. We got to hang out in the Oval Office, and I got to make jokes about mowing his lawn because I mowed lawns at the time, or I had a job mowing lawns for like 15 years. And I asked him if he'd come up and play saxophone, and he said, "No, I'll play the president. You play the music." I mean, he's he's one of those people persons, You meet a few of these people like talk show hosts, and they're very forthcoming and generous in their ability to be able to make someone feel comfortable. And so yeah, I think there was 3 we played at the inauguration, and when his term finished, he came to Minneapolis to do a kind of a thanks to his supporters thing, and he asked us to play again, and he asked Monica, and I gave it to him, and I thought that was like, so yeah, Bill Clinton, man, nice guy.
See, that's cool. Now also, you being from Minnesota, what was it like when Stinson joined the band? I mean, I'm sure their replacements were God. How did that come about?
I'm sorry, what?
When down the road in your career, when Tommy Stinson joined your band,
Yeah.
how did that come about? Because I mean, being from Minnesota, that must have been a big compliment to you.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy was in high school when I was in high school, so I knew Tommy through. Yeah, I thought he dated my sister. Let's just put it that way. He later told me that he didn't really date my sister, but someone told me that. Anyhow, so he really came to the rescue. I mean, I got to be honest. I mean, Carl had died, and I did not want to. I really couldn't figure out if Soul Asylum should continue without Carl Mueller, because there's really only me, Dan, and Carl who started the band. And Tommy came forward. I'll figure out what to do next. And that was a bit of a godsend. I was like, fuck. Carl's ex-wife is, I'm sorry, not ex-wife, widow. I can't get used to saying that. Carl's widow is good friends with Tommy. Whatever. Everybody loves Tommy.
Now,
that was a joke. But yeah, Tommy said, I'll do it. And we said, great, let's go, And we even felt like Carl would have been okay with that. So that made it easier to sort of move forward. And man, Tommy's a blast. He's just an incredible musician. He's really fun to play with and be around. And yeah, so I just talked to him not that long ago. He was in town opening for doing a solo acoustic.
Now you're going to be going on tour again soon. It starts very soon.
Mm-hmm.
How is the road for you now? I mean, you've been on the road for a long time. I know you have. I believe you got a new guitarist a little while ago. What is it like for you going out, still on the road? Do you still have fun? I mean, I'm sure you're appreciative, but what's it like for you?
As opposed to...
Is it getting taxing on you? Because, you're not, when you're 24, 25, doing a bunch of gigs is a lot easier.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're cutting out a little bit, but I think what you mean is touring harder now that I'm not fucking 20 anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's still fun. I mean, listen to me. I'm like, while I'm talking about it. But travel sucks. And I got to be honest with you, we do a lot of fly-in dates, and ever since 9/11, it just really, really, really sucks. And that's something that, I don't know, only happens a lifetime, but God, it made flying to gigs miserable, and it still is. So, when we get a bus, which is, we sort of have to go on a long tour to get a bus, it's pretty similar to what it's always been like. We used to get the back lounge to play cards and stuff, and now Michael gets the back lounge because Michael is a big man. But the rest of it is pretty similar. I can't really sleep at night after the gig. I used to stay up and play cards. Now I just stay up and do a lot of drawing and stuff on the bus and try to keep myself. Well, I try to compose. But, there's a little more options with, you can watch a movie, or I buy fucking stupid truck stops, just literally for, I go through the $3.99 bin and I find Airplane and I put it on and I either get, vetoed or what's like, oh my God, I forgot how funny this movie is or whatever. But, people will file out. They'll go to bed. I think that's left over from like when I had sleepover. I didn't want to fall asleep first because I thought somebody might prank me in my sleep. So I pretty much wait for everyone else to go to bed.
Now,
and then I go to bed, or I make a drawing, or I do a stupid video project or something crazy. I'm a night owl anyways, which leaves a lot of time for not getting up in the morning.
right.
And, but I love sleeping on a moving vehicle. It really feels, when you're sleeping on a bus for 8, moving the whole time, I feel like I'm multitasking. And that part, I really feel like I'm getting a lot done when I'm sleeping.
Well,
moving.
it's a productive sleep. You have a productive sleep.
Change.
Now, what's the future of the band? Are you going to plan to record again? What's going on?
Well, we have a completed record, and I'm just looking at the list of 22 songs that we're trying to, whittle down to 12, and seems like it's going pretty good as far as everybody trying to agree on which 11 or 12 songs. But it's pretty much finished. Once we pick the 11 songs, I'll go in and fix a couple more things. And I'm working on a book, believe it or not. It's a lyric book. It's just a book of my lyrics. And, the band is in as good a shape as ever. It's just so much, for lack of a better expression, being very, very young and not knowing what you're doing and making music that people are actually paying for, it's really swinging in the dark a lot. Like, you don't know what you're doing, So a lot of that has changed. A lot of that is like, I don't need a huge budget and a bunch of experts on microphones to pay to come to the studio to make sure that we don't screw it up. You sort of learn the trade, you know what I mean? So a lot of that stuff, with the band and with everything, everybody has learned the basic rudiments of music in a way that it's much more fun. You're not struggling with, why doesn't it sound right, because you haven't figured out how to tune a guitar yet, or just weird little things like eventually you just figure out. But the only way you can figure it out is if you're on stage and the shit hits the fan and you go, I'm never doing that again. So whatever just happened there, I never want that to happen again. And then you go about learning how to prevent that from ever happening again, which is the tricks and the tools of the trade, So a lot of those things are resolved, and everybody knows what needs to happen and what needs to be done, and that is completely different than it was 30 years ago, Thank God I have learned some experience.
Now,
it's not useful for anything else, but it certainly is for this.
Now, for the album, do you all have a say in what songs are going to go on it? Because you said you have 22, you got to whittle it down. Is it a voting system, or how do you decide what's going to go on it?
It is, and I am the president.
Okay.
So ultimately I have veto power, but I'm still waiting to see if everyone is going to agree on 11 songs. And if they all agree on 11 songs, I might have to switch one out or not. And this is the first time this has ever happened, and Michael Bland is pretty much what I would call the musical director, which is an expression that I had never heard before. And when Michael joined the band, he was coming from a lot of way more professional situations, if you will. He was getting offers to play with Madonna. He had played with Prince for years, blah, blah, blah. He'd seen all this other kind of stuff where he said, oh, Dave, when you're in a band, it's more like you're in a gang or something, and for him, it's like a profession. So he doesn't have any problem being really organized. And so he has conducted this survey of the other 3 people all that stuff comes to him very naturally. So they're trying to figure it out, and I'm just kind of going to have the final say, I suppose, and, really trying to decide if I care what my manager thinks, that sort of thing.
Now, will you play any of the new songs on the tour?
We are playing a couple of them, and yes, we will probably be paying. I don't know. We'll be playing more of them than we have, but it's a limited amount of time on stage, and sometimes you got to play something that somebody recognizes. I mean, it'd be great if I didn't care, but I guess I do. I got that old cliche of people coming to the show and going, "Oh, we drove 800 miles to get here, and you didn't play Runaway Train." And I was like, that sucks. So I'm like, fuck it. I'll just play Runaway Train.
Where do you?
It takes me 4 minutes. It's not that big of a deal.
Where do you guys play that? Where do you play that in the set? Is there a set position that you play Runaway Train?
Well, yeah, you got to put it kind of late in the set. You know what I mean? Because if there's people there that are just there to hear that song.
Right. Well, I want to thank you for coming, spending the time today, Dave. The tour starts soon. People, the website is soulasylum.com. So go check out their music. Go buy their music. Go to Wikipedia. It lists all their albums. And good luck on the tour, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for your time. It was fun.
No problem. You have a good night.
Have a great afternoon.
Great. Thanks. Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Take it easy.